But we have Dr. Oyobami, Oyedare, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the ONI of the Global Outreach in Nigeria. And for the king himself, Ojiji II, and Bami, if I can call him that, is an outstanding world leader in his own right. He has a very keen mind, great wisdom, and insights as far what needs to be happening on the African continent. Bami, please take off, please, and share your time with us. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Sam. I appreciate that introduction. Yeah, well, good afternoon, everyone, from the United Kingdom, and rare greetings from His Imperial Majesty, the Oni of Ife, who has saddled me with the obligation of representing his voice, at this special conference, who is regarded as one of the foremost monarchs in Africa, whose throne and royal mission is purely dedicated to reconstructing the greatness of Africa and rebuilding the wealth of those kingdoms that metamorphose into countries and republics. I must place on record at this junction the effort of the organizing committee that is ably led by its chairman, Mr. Aniete Fonle Cornet, with a special mentioning of the coordinator of Watch Democracy Grow, Mrs. Mary. Endless gratitude to you all and the entire team. In response to the almost new normal of living with the COVID-19 pandemic and its unprecedented invasions of our global economy, I had contemplated greatly on what should form the central thesis of this opening remark, these historical nuances, relevant discourses, important facts, etc. I asked myself what would be the most effective way to communicate my thoughts and the thoughts of Watch Democracy Grow as an embodiment of new normal, meaning and development of Africa. I concluded that my best approach would be to speak straight, be practical and functional. My conclusion is based on the fact that majority of those on this platform are finding collective solutions to drive in transformational mechanism for the development of Africa democracy and its infrastructure. Most importantly, the citizens of Africa whose behalf this platform is convened are in a hurry to finding solutions. Unlike the proverbial tortoise who became very historical and restless after a decision has already been taken to get him out of shithole he has been for several years, I can say ours Africa has indeed peaked, become an emergency and a matter of life and death. This great conference is benchmarked on a comprehensive socioeconomic planning, model similar to the Marshall Plan of 1947. I hold the view that Africa is a continent that must concern all of us because Africa continues in many ways to punch below our economic credence. The question that we must ask is what must Africa do to transform our economy and by extension, the lives of people of Africa. This is a central thesis and discourse I believe that this conference will be anatomizing. I equally submit that this isn't a new debate. In fact, I would like to submit to you that since Africa regained independence from the colonizer, the continent has been conscientiously negotiating the right economic path that best suits our development. Through the lenses of history, through spirit and past heroes that championed African independence, fought on the premise that they were going to transform a chart comprehensive socioeconomic pathway for Africa, so that in 1957, when Kwame Nkrumah said, "Seek ye first the political kingdom and the rest will be given unto you," it was synonymous to the biblical narratives of the voice of the one crying in the wilderness. Prepare ye the way of the Lord, make his path straight. Nkrumah summoned the comrades to rise above political independence to find a distinctive and unmistakable comprehensive economic approach that will free the continent for centuries to come. At the Congress of African Leaders towards African Unity in 1963 at Addis Ababa, Nkrumah was so passionate on that day that he said, "Let us not live here without a united Africa, with one currency, with one passport, with one army, with one police, with one economy. Because if we don't, the invader is not asleep. In a few years, they might begin to confuse us again, and we will never unite." It was a clarion call towards African integration in trade, transportation, migration, educational exchange, etc. Kwame Nkrumah was not a Jewish prophet, but no sooner had he settled down, the intervention by the Western influence started in earnest. It is no wonder, therefore, that the first generation leaders, many of them through the mechanization of these Western influences, were removed from power. Kwame himself was not spared. In 1966, he was removed, and many others. Such developments brought back in earnest the historical recollection of Berlin Conference of 1884, and up to the conclusion of the independence struggle. The period as dark night for the continent of Africa was unsettled in the minds of Kwame Nkrumah and others. During this dark period and through lenses of centuries of history, Africa has continued to remain a beautiful masterpiece. It is a continent which embodies many greatness and complexities of challenges. It is worthy of mentioning that Africa cannot be blamed as the architect of its past predicament. As according to the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair rightly said, Africa's predicament is a scare in the consciousness of the world. Such threats of history cannot be said to be unconnected to some of the perennial challenges that Africa is battling with, where some of our economic development templates are generated from the Europe or American culture. I attended a meeting in 2008 in Berlin as a scholar on the German Academic Exchange Service, DAD. And it was a high-level meeting for young Africans and Europeans to discuss how Europe will relate with Africa 50 years from then. Africa took the biblical instructions rather literally that we should not worry about tomorrow, that tomorrow will take care of itself. Tomorrow is not in the business of taking care of itself. Tomorrow is in the business of being taken care of. I therefore hold the view, therefore, that if Africa is to enjoy the comprehensive socio-economic development has been advocated for by the Watch the Democracy Growth today, Africa must deal with the fundamentals. I'm suggesting to Africa that one of the things that the continent must know is that the global economic connectivity is a positive indices that must be harnessed to the advantage of the continent. The Europeans are now planning how to negotiate with the continent for the next 100 years. The Chinese are currently engaging the continent with the vision of the next 75 years from today. So as the Asians, so as the Arab, because Africa is the land of opportunity, and as it has always been. Africa economy has been locked down on the decades of pandemics, systemic failure, and absolute reliance on AIDS. In contrast to the success of the Marshall Plan that was recorded in Western Europe after the World War II, aid to Africa over the 60 years since its independence has been a failure. I submit that aid has increased, Africa economy performance has declined. According to Lubamba, that great professor, said, I've never believed that Africa is going to pull out herself from the murky and mire of poverty by receiving donor money or integrating the design millennial project into our economic development. You cannot realize economic development of any human movement through the lenses of charity or gift aid alone. I must submit that what is in the best interest of Africa is to leverage on the I-5s of the African Development Bank, which stands on the pillars of Light Up and Power Africa, Feed Africa, Industrialize Africa, Integrate Africa, and improve the quality of life for the people of Africa. Africa needs to redesign its economic outlook and engage its diaspora community. Africa shouldn't be dependent only on external aids or foreign direct investment for its economic survival. For example, the classic rise of 2017-18 inflows of billions of dollars through the remittance schemes from Africa in diaspora to Africa is beginning to cast a doubt on the effectiveness.
We need to finish and move forward with our agenda. Thank you, sir. Closing statement.
Okay, yes, the closing statement is Africa must embrace Agenda 2063 as the continent new vision. Permit me to end this opening remark with Dr. Akinwumi Adesina's, the president of African Development Bank statement. The third that says, think of a continent that will have the same population as India and China, taken together by 2050. Think of a continent with a rising middle class, rapid urbanization that will have the young population in early by 2050. Think no further, think Africa.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Wise words from a wise man.